More than half a century later, nobody knows who he really was. Despite one of the largest investigations in American history, despite thousands of suspects, despite decades of forensic analysis, despite modern DNA technology, the Zodiac Killer has never been officially identified. The man called himself the Zodiac, and he wanted the world to know his name. He wanted attention, he wanted fear, and most importantly, he wanted the entire world to know his name. Within months, newspapers across California began receiving strange letters. The letters claimed responsibility for multiple murders. Along with the letters came coded messages, ciphers that seemed impossible to understand. 3 newspapers across Northern California received nearly identical messages. The author claimed responsibility for both attacks. He included details that had never been released publicly. Investigators quickly realized they were dealing with the real killer, but the letters contained something even stranger. Each included 1/3 of a cryptographic cipher. The writer demanded publication. He claimed the coded message revealed his identity. Experts immediately began trying to solve it. Teachers worked on it. Students worked on it. Police worked on it. Cryptography enthusiasts worked on it. For days, nobody succeeded. Then a schoolteacher and his wife cracked the code. The message shocked readers. It began with a chilling statement. The writer claimed he enjoyed killing people. Human beings were the most dangerous game. Yet despite promising to reveal his identity, the cipher never actually provided a name. Instead, the mystery only deepened. And then the killer finally introduced himself. In another letter sent to newspapers, the writer began with 3 unforgettable words. "This is the Zodiac speaking." The name would become infamous. From that moment forward, America had a new nightmare. A murderer who not only killed people, but actively communicated with the media. A criminal who treated murder like a performance. A man who seemed to enjoy watching fear spread across entire communities. Police departments faced a challenge unlike anything they had encountered before. Every new letter generated headlines. Every coded message created public fascination. Every murder increased pressure on investigators. And the Zodiac appeared to love every second of it. Soon, the Zodiac would become even more dangerous, because his next attack would occur in broad daylight. And this time, there would be multiple witnesses. By the fall of 1969, fear had spread across Northern California. The Zodiac Killer had become a household name. Newspapers printed his letters. Television stations discussed his threats. Police departments worked around the clock. And yet nobody knew who he was. The public imagined a monster hiding somewhere in plain sight. A man capable of murder. A man obsessed with attention. A man who seemed to enjoy playing games with investigators. But what nobody knew was that the Zodiac was already planning his next move. And unlike his previous attacks, this one would be impossible to forget. On September 27, 1969, 2 college students arrived at Lake Berryessa. The lake was beautiful that afternoon. The sky was clear. The water sparkled under the California sun. Families relaxed near the shoreline. Boats drifted across the water. Everything felt peaceful. Among the visitors were 22-year-old Brian Hartnell and 22-year-old Cecilia Shepard. The pair chose a quiet area away from the crowds. They spread out a blanket, talked, relaxed, and enjoyed the warm afternoon. For hours, nothing seemed unusual. Then Cecilia noticed something strange. A man was approaching. At first, he appeared to be walking carefully through the trees. Neither of them felt alarmed. The area was popular with hikers and fishermen. But as the man moved closer, something became very wrong. He wasn't dressed like a hiker. He wasn't carrying fishing equipment. And he wasn't dressed like anyone they had ever seen before. The stranger wore a black executioner's hood. It completely covered his head. Dark sunglasses hid his eyes. A bib-like covering hung across his chest. On it was a strange symbol. A circle crossed by vertical and horizontal lines. The Zodiac symbol. Years later, it would become one of the most recognizable images in criminal history. At that moment, however, Brian and Cecilia had no idea who stood before them. The figure approached calmly. He carried a gun, yet his voice remained surprisingly controlled, almost polite. The man claimed he was an escaped convict. He said he needed money. He said he needed their car. He said he only wanted to leave the area. The story sounded strange, but Brian Hartnell believed it. The masked stranger seemed nervous. Not violent, not aggressive, just desperate. At least that was the impression he created. Then he ordered the couple to tie each other up. Brian complied. Soon both victims were restrained. And then everything changed. The stranger pulled out a knife. What happened next shocked investigators. Unlike previous attacks involving firearms, the Zodiac suddenly switched methods. He attacked both victims with brutal violence. Again, and again, and again. The assault lasted only minutes, but it left a horrifying scene behind. When the attacker finally finished, he calmly walked away. Not running, not panicking, simply walking, as though he had completed a routine task. Yet the most chilling part was still to come. After leaving the victims behind, the killer approached Brian Hartnell's vehicle. Using a black marker, he wrote directly on the car door. The message included dates, locations, and references to previous murders. It was a signature, a public announcement. The Zodiac wasn't hiding his crimes. He was claiming them. Soon after, he made another move. Using a payphone, he contacted police. His voice remained calm, almost emotionless. He reported the attack himself. Then he hung up. The call lasted only seconds, but it confirmed something terrifying. The Zodiac wanted credit. The murders alone were not enough. He wanted investigators to know exactly who was responsible. Miraculously, Brian Hartnell survived. So did Cecilia Shepard, at least initially. Both victims provided valuable information. Brian described the strange costume, the symbol, the voice, and the behavior. For the first time, investigators had a detailed description of the killer's appearance during an attack. Yet despite this breakthrough, they remained no closer to identifying him. Then tragedy struck once again. 2 days after the attack, Cecilia Shepard died from her injuries. The Zodiac had claimed another victim. Public fear intensified. Parents worried about their children. Couples avoided isolated areas. Communities began locking doors that once remained open. People wondered where the Zodiac would strike next. Police hoped the attack at Lake Berryessa represented a mistake. Perhaps the killer had exposed too much information. Perhaps witnesses would recognize him. Perhaps evidence would finally lead to an arrest. Instead, the opposite happened. Less than 2 weeks later, the Zodiac shocked everyone again. This time, he abandoned remote roads and isolated parks. Instead, he entered a city, and he chose a target surrounded by potential witnesses.